Joining us now is Sean Perryman, and Sean is a candidate for Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, a Democrat. Hey, Sean, great to have you with us.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good morning.
Sean, tell me about your race.
Well, I think it's going to be an interesting one. Whoever comes out of the 2021 election is going to have to deal with the post-COVID recovery, whether that's with a vaccine or without a vaccine. We're running, and we're getting ready to gear up to announce soon. And I think that we're able to speak to some of the issues that are going to be, pressing us in the Commonwealth, both now and in the years to come.
You are Fairfax NAACP president running for lieutenant governor. You have really no political experience, elected office. You're going up against some pretty big heavyweights. How do you navigate your way through this kind of a race?
Well, I think the lane for us is that most people aren't, I don't look at it as they look at Democrat, Republican. They look at political, non-political. A lot of the people that are running are just saying, hey, I've been in the legislature for 2 or 3 years and I deserve a promotion. We're not saying that. We're saying we're living in a moment where government hasn't served us as best as it could, and we're able to speak to that. And I would say I have plenty of policy experience. So was counsel on the House Oversight Committee for a number of years, do tech policy, speak on artificial intelligence, immigration, all sorts of issues. So I think I have both the experience and the leadership experience, more importantly, to speak to this moment and step up into the position.
How many candidates are in the race now?
Yeah, everyone and their cousin is rumored to be jumping in, but right now it's Delegate Hala Ayala is the only declared candidate from Prince William, and then I think Paul Goldman on the Democratic side. There are a number of people like myself who are exploring the committee. We've gotten a lot of momentum, and I think I'm going to announce here pretty soon. But I can't speak for everyone else who's looking at it.
Well, probably there's going to be a lot of people in that. Paul Goldman, certainly former executive director of the Democratic Party under Governor Wilder, been around for a long time. Not sure if he's got the ability to raise money or if he's a serious candidate. Senator Lulla's, she's relatively new, not a lot of experience. So I think the lane's kind of wide open because you just don't know what's going to happen. Let's talk about what's going on in Richmond and some of the violence of these riots. We just did a story today in the Virginia Star where we've got over $4 million of damage, people that have lost their businesses down there, stores burned down. There's graffiti, F this, F that. Nobody's done anything about it. Even though LeVar Stoney has a anti-graffiti division, he chooses not to take the graffiti off, not to offend the rioters. If you're lieutenant governor, how are you going to deal with what is going on right now in Richmond, sir?
Well, honestly, I think what you're speaking to, I would call a lot of those people are protesters. There are some people who are being violent, but I would say that what we need more so than anything, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, and we need actual leadership. We need people, if, I were the lieutenant governor, I'm in the Capitol, I'm going to come out there and speak to folks, and I think we need to unite around that. Because what's happening in Richmond is not only happening here, it's happening across our nation. And rather than trying to figure out what kind of consensus can we reach, because everyone was outraged by the murder of George Floyd, every single person that I've ever encountered. And so I think what we need are people that can bring us together and say, look, we're all in this terrible situation together, whether it's a pandemic, whether it's figuring out what makes our community safe. And we need leadership that steps up and speaks to people and says, let's stop polarizing everyone. Let's come together and figure out how we remake this community in a way that makes sense.
I mean, I get what you're saying, Sean, and I'm all for leadership. I'm in Richmond. I don't think LeVar Stoney has provided any of it. But in our Star report today, 48 fires were intentionally set. I mean, if you're lieutenant governor, are you going to come out and condemn I don't have a problem with the people protesting. That's their right, First Amendment, okay. But 48 fires have been set, Sean, $4 million in damage. What do you say to the people that businesses have been burned down there? I mean, if you were lieutenant governor, would you come out and condemn these violent riots and violent fires and tell people to just stop? That's what we're asking.
If I were lieutenant governor, I would come out and I would tell people that we hear you and that we are going to do something. We're going to take action to address the concerns. But I would tell people that violence is not the answer. I've never condoned anyone being violent at any time, whether that's armed men coming to Richmond to talk about having to wear masks, or whether that's the current thing of people setting fires. I think that what we need more so than anything, though, is to address the actual issues that are leading to this, whether that be police violence, whether that be people just feeling unheard in the city of Richmond. I've seen time and time again scores of people just randomly tear gassed, and that's not acceptable. So I would speak to both of those issues. I would say that we need to get some sort of control over that city, and that includes the police violence as well. I would not leave that out.
What about the police chief getting fired in Portsmouth, Virginia, Sean? What did you think of that?
So I followed obviously what happened with the senator there being charged with a felony, and I did think that police chief overreached, and so I can't speak to the details of everything of
right.
Why they were fired, but I had real concerns about NAACP members and a sitting state senator being charged with a felony for something that they weren't directly involved in.
Sean, you're from Northern Virginia. There's a big vote there. How do you appeal downstate? How do you appeal Hampton Roads, Southwest Virginia? Not that there's that many Democratic votes there, but let's Charlottesville in the central, Blacksburg. What is your appeal outside of Nova?
Well, I look at it as this. I speak to the 3 E's for everyone: education, economics, and equity. Coming out of this, we need to get people working. Whether you're in Northern Virginia or rural Virginia, probably even more so in rural Virginia, you need to be able to earn a living, and that includes getting jobs down there. And that I come from working in the tech sector. What I would want to do is, if you're a tech company coming into Virginia, you need to educate our workforce at a low cost, and that includes boot camps to get people to learn tech skills. But then I think more so than anything, when that goes to the equity piece, we need to have internet access. It's ridiculous that we're living in a pandemic, and there are parts of Southwest Virginia that I call, and they say, well, we can't get on a Zoom because we don't have good enough internet. So that's not only an education issue, that becomes an economic issue. And I think I can speak to those. I'm someone who comes from, being used to a place that Virginian politicians aren't thinking about, what is this community thinking about? And I think in those communities, we've sort of left them behind in a lot of ways. We need to look at the connectivity issue down there, and we need to look at some of the basics, which are the same for everyone: education, economics, and equity, making sure that everyone is brought along with us.
You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network. We're with Fairfax NAACP President John Perryman. He's exploring a likely run for Lieutenant Governor of Virginia that we expect it to be a very crowded field when it's all said and done. And Sean from the Northern Virginia area. Do you believe, because this debate, I'm going to ask you about issues that are now being debated in the state Senate, which as Lieutenant Governor, you would hold the gavel over. Do you think police should lose qualified immunity in Virginia as they have it now, Sean?
Absolutely. And I look at that, and it strikes me as strange that this has become such a political polarizing issue. We want accountability for anyone who's in government. That's anyone. That's not a I don't like police issue. That's an issue of, if you are doing a job, whether it's a hard job or easy job, there should be some form of accountability if you act outside the scope of that. And, frankly, the fact that conservatives haven't championed this issue is strange to me, because this is judge-created law. This is not something that was done through legislation. So I absolutely think we need to end qualified immunity.
So what about the other side of the argument, the law enforcement officials who come on and said that, nobody is going to go into police work if they're going to get sued every time there's a traffic stop and the person that got stopped doesn't like the way they were talked to, or if they resist arrest or something. How do you respond to that?
Well, look, my background as a lawyer, you're not going to find an attorney who's going to take every traffic suit and think there's money there. There's not enough. There's nothing there to generate an incentive to make those sort of frivolous lawsuits. The other thing that we have to keep in mind is insurance exists. If you're a professional, insurance is a thing, and if we put that where the cities have to provide insurance for the cops, they're never going to feel that, but the incentives will be such that those premiums go up, that the police department is going to change their behavior. So if we really want to root out the bad apples, as so many people say, this shouldn't be an issue, because you're really not going to be incentivized to bring a lawsuit unless you really see some egregious behavior that's going to make it worthwhile to go file in the courtroom and go through the whole process.
All right, some of the other hot issues going on right now in the General Assembly. Let's get to right to work. That almost got scrapped by the Democrats I guess it'll be the 2020 session. Are you in favor of repealing Virginia's right to work status, Sean?
Yes, I am in favor of repealing it, and I look at it like this. We just came off the Labor Day. Last year, Virginia was ranked number one for business, but last for workers. So we definitely need to balance the equation, especially during the pandemic. We've seen we don't have basic worker protections here. People are fighting to get paid sick leave during a health crisis that's going across the nation as well as the globe. So I absolutely support right to work repealing right to work rather, because that will give the labor unions as well as workers the ability to negotiate some of these things that we need to see in Virginia.
Some Democrats, in order to close the budget gap caused by the pandemic, want to see a pretty significant state income tax raise or a sales tax increase. Do you back either of those, Sean?
I would have to look at those specifically. I haven't, I'm just being honest with you, I haven't studied that. What I think we need to do, though, I've focused less on raising taxes. I think we need to create new markets. One of the things I've championed is that we decriminalize cannabis. We eventually need to legalize it, because there's no sense in throwing people away because they've done something that harms no one. And then also during the midst of a pandemic, we need to be creative, and there's no reason why we're no longer arresting people that we don't legalize that market and bring in the revenue and use it for early childhood education, free the people that are locked up wrongly for those convictions. So I think we need to think outside the box and create new ways to bring in revenue, not just raise taxes on folks.
All right, so you're looking for expansion of business increase the size of the pie and the number of people, kind of the entrepreneurial sector, so they pay more taxes in through expanding business rather than just raise taxes on the existing base we have? Is that the way?
That's right. I would want to expand business. I think if we legalized cannabis and then we also did something with it, like created like universal pre-K, those creates jobs not only in the cannabis industry, but in the education industry and in the transportation industry, all of that. We need to be expanding business, and that would help get people back to work as well as bring in new tax revenue.
John Fredericks Radio Network. We're with Fairfax NAACP President John Perryman. He is a likely candidate for lieutenant governor. That'll be solved in a primary in June of 2021. Assuming there's a primary, I would assume there would be one. The Republicans, we still have no idea if they're going to do a primary or try to rig yet another convention, which is what they do. One thing you said, though, that doesn't make sense to me, Sean, to just be honest.
Sure.
You want to expand business, but then you want to repeal right to work. Well, one of the reasons you get business expansion in Virginia is because we have, we have a historic right to work law. So aren't those mutually exclusive, Sean?
No, not at all. I think that we, as I pointed out, we're first for business and last for workers. You need to balance that out. You can allow workers to sit at the table and negotiate. We're all in a free market system where we can say you can collectively bargain and say, hey, this is what I would like. We bring in plenty of businesses here. To think that if we legalized cannabis and then got rid of right to work, no one would come in for that market, that's absurd to me. Of course, if you have a new market and there's money to be made, people will deal with not having a right to work state. And we see that across the country. There are plenty of states that don't have the similar laws as Virginia, and they're not suffering for business. So I don't think that repealing right to work means that you can't expand business opportunity.
Today was the first day back of school for a lot of people. I've got a lot of our callers upset that their kids are at home taking an internet class rather than in schools. And, of course, they're paying property taxes to be in school. Teachers aren't there. I mean, this thing is a mess. You've got Richmond, for instance, where kids are not going to be in school for basically a 12-month cycle. I don't know what it does to their development, but I focus on Richmond a lot because I don't like LeVar Stoney. I think he's the worst mayor in the history of mayors. Ran as the education. I just don't like him. Ran as the education mayor in 2016 with a 20% dropout rate in Richmond. He's there for 48 months. It's now 32%. Nice job, LeVar. What are we going to do here with kids dropping out of school, not getting in classroom teaching? We don't know if there's child abuse. Their development is falling behind. I mean, a lot of people are getting concerned about this. As Lieutenant Governor, how would you try to solve this issue?
Well, John, and I would say we may have something in common about LeVar, but to answer your question, I have a daughter in kindergarten, and I just set her up on a laptop. She's in another room here, trying her best, and we are lucky enough to have help to help her do that. So I understand the struggle of what do we do here. I think we're in a messy situation where we need to get creative, but at the same time, I understand the decision making that nobody wants to send their kids to school and potentially get sick and shut it down. I think that coming out of this, we need to sit down with teachers. We need to sit down with parents and everyone else and figure out, do we supplement the learning with extra schooling? In the year, if, let's say we get a vaccine or whatever, do we have, mandatory summer school or something like that? Because we do have to fix those gaps. There are children who simply cannot learn in the education. And I think that at some point we may want to explore a hybrid model where some kids go in and some others don't, because then you may have the issues where you don't have to space them in there. But we need, what I would point out is I think what's been failing us here at the state level and nationally, whatever, is we need a coordinated approach. And I think we need to sit down and figure this out. If there are kids who learn better in school, is there a way to do that safely? These are some of the ideas we have to be thinking about, but I don't think there's been nearly enough communication at the statewide level with the superintendents and the folks on the ground.
I tell you what, I love the idea of mandatory summer school for a while to get these kids caught up, when they can go back. I also like the hybrid model. I think you have to have some in school so you have the contact with the teachers. I think the schools right now, they're 100% online. I mean, it's just kids are just falling behind, and there's social development. There's all sorts of development issues that
we also
upset me.
We also have to keep in mind that some of these kids may have special education needs and everything else. So that model may not work for everyone. There may be a risk for some kids that they're not willing to take. But we have to keep in mind that not all our kids learn the same way. And so we have to figure that out in some way. Yeah.
Right. Well, we're going to end on that because we're in total agreement. And see, Sean, there's a difference because you have a child starting kindergarten today, and so you have to deal with this. And, you and I we have a family network around us so we can take care of our kids at home. If you're a single mom working 2 jobs to try to put food on the table, you don't have the option, Sean, that you and I have. That's what troubles me, is that the single mom in Richmond or Portsmouth or Hampton or Chesapeake, where I live, single mom, 2 jobs, they don't have an option. They can't be home with their child, being sure they're on Zoom and they're connected on the internet. And so what chance do those kids have, Sean? They don't have a shot. And that's what upsets me. So on that we can agree on, I'm sure.
I agree.
Sean Perryman, thank you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
It's an excellent interview. And Sean, thank you for your candor and honesty in answering direct questions. A breath of fresh air, no doubt. John Fredericks Radio Network.